That was the Black Diamond Heavies from East Nashville, Tennessee, with their song Everything is Everything, famous for stripping down the deep blues to its frame and pumping their music through a big stack of amps while shaking it into a cold sweat. Prior to that, we had Martina Topley Bird. You've got to love that name, don't you? Martina Topley Bird. It's a double-barreled name there. Sounds like a bird that got topply after too many martinis. But that was her song called Need One. She's pretty much renowned as the grandmother of trip-hop. And we kicked off the set there with that dedication to Joel from Louise, Jealous Heart by Whiskey Shivers.
RAMJAM.
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 Okay, so I've got a couple of recommendations for you that go hand in hand. One is a podcast called Rabbit Hole, and the other is a doco called The Social Dilemma. Now, The Social Dilemma, there's a lot of talk about this at the moment, so I'm going to get into that one first. A friend of mine first recommended this doco a couple of weeks ago, saying essential viewing for all parents. But after watching it, I'd extend that to say that it's essential viewing for absolutely everyone, especially if you care about the way the world is going.
When you go to Google and type in climate change is, you're going to see different results depending on where you live and the particular things that Google knows about your interests.
That's not by accident, that's a design technique.
I watched it about 2 weeks ago, and it covers the sort of things that people are already familiar with generally, about the addictive, distracting nature of social media, the harvesting and selling of all our data about us and our internet usage. But what it does do is it dives deeper into it all with an insightfulness of analysis that can only come from people who are intimately familiar with the subject in all detail, and people who have clearly wrestled with all the ethical and philosophical issues around what it really means for people and the world.
What I want people to know is that everything they're doing online is being watched, is being tracked. Every single action you take is carefully monitored and recorded.
We've got people in there who are being interviewed who have worked in very important roles at some of the big tech giants like Apple, Google, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Mozilla Labs, Firefox, and Pinterest. Some of these people are early employees, people who have helped start the companies. There's a senior VP of engineering, the president of Pinterest, director of monetization at Facebook for 5 years, head of consumer product, and the co-inventor of Google Drive, Gmail Chat, Facebook Pages, and the Facebook Like button.
I was the co-inventor of the Facebook Like button.
I was the president of Pinterest,
Google, Twitter, Instagram.
Now, it's very clear when you watch the doco that these people obviously recognize all the good things that have come from social media, but they also recognize the flip side of the coin, and they're very concerned. They're very concerned. It turns out they will actually be, while they've been a part of creating this technology, they're now on the side of confessing for what they've done and apologizing for it.
There were meaningful changes happening around the world because of these platforms. I think we were naive about the flip side of that coin.
I always felt like fundamentally it was a force for good. I don't know if I feel that way anymore.
A key tagline for the doco is, the technology that connects us also controls us. The technology that connects us also divides us, also polarizes us, also distracts us, also monetizes us. They go into the business model of the tech giants. Their customers are the advertisers. That's where they get their revenue. And the product they sell is us. Or more specifically, it's our time and attention, beliefs and views of the world, feelings and opinions.
We get rewarded by hearts, likes, thumbs up, and we conflate that with value and we conflate it with truth.
A whole generation is more anxious, more depressed.
And they've got these incredibly powerful mega computers constantly harvesting massive amounts of data about us, creating complex profiles and measuring how we react to different things. And with the use of AI, they're constantly tweaking and refining the way social media creates engagement, how it presents information to make it ever more captivating, persuasive, and influential. It even works on a subconscious level. It's very sneaky.
A lot of people think Google's just a search box and Facebook's just a place to see what my friends are doing. What they don't realize is there's entire teams of engineers whose job is to use your psychology against you.
Anna Lamke, an addiction expert at Stanford University, says that these companies exploit the brain's evolutionary need for interpersonal connection. They talk about hacking human psychology, implanting habits unconsciously, and the subliminal cues on the page to affect real change without even our awareness. All in the name of business. One of the guys in the interviews confesses to working all day to make his site irresistibly seductive, and then when he gets home at night, he finds himself unable to resist the same algorithmic tricks he created.
Facebook discovered that they were able to affect real-world behavior and emotions without ever triggering the user's awareness. They are completely clueless.
For the current generation, social media is an essential third party for communication, connection, and relationships. But it's not a neutral third party. They've got their own agenda based on profits, and they're making a phenomenal amount of money unheard of in human history. And they've got all this practically immeasurable amount of computing power at their fingertips. Never before have a handful of tech designers had such control over the way billions of people on the planet think, act, and live out their lives.
Facebook discovered that they were able to affect real-world behavior and emotions without ever triggering the user's awareness. They are completely clueless.
A 5,000-person study found that higher social media use correlated with self-reported declines in mental and physical health and life satisfaction. Social media advertising gives anyone the opportunity to reach huge numbers of people with incredible ease, giving bad actors the tools to sow unrest and political divisions. The number of countries with political disinformation campaigns on social media has doubled in the past 2 years. 64% of people who joined extremist groups on Facebook did so because the algorithm steered them there.
Fake news spreads 6 times faster than true news. We're being bombarded with rumors.
If everyone's entitled to their own facts, there's really no need for people to come together. In fact, there's really no need for people to interact.
We have less control over who we are and what we really believe.
If you want to control the population of your country, there has never been a tool as effective as Facebook.
One of the early investors in Facebook makes this point. Russia didn't hack Facebook. They simply used the platform with its existing tools. The Social Dilemma presents a series of very thoughtful questions and well-articulated answers that you've probably never thought about. And it's delivered by people who really know, who really care, and with a fineness of intelligence and integrity.
We built these things and we have a responsibility to change it. The intention could be, how do we make the world better?
If technology creates mass chaos, loneliness, more polarization, more election hacking, more inability to focus on the real issues, we're toast.
This is checkmate on humanity.
I definitely agree with my friend. Essential viewing for all parents, and everyone else for that matter. Now, if you've seen Social Dilemma, but you haven't listened to the podcast Rabbit Hole, you need to check this one out as well.
All right, so where do we begin?
Hey, how's it going, bros? My name is... So many places we could start.
Rabbit Hole's an 8-part podcast series by the New York Times that covers similar ground, but with a few different angles.
What if we start with when I first called you last year? Do you remember that?
Where it starts, they're given access to the complete YouTube browsing history of one individual, and they follow his journey parallel with the changes that were going on in his life and his attitudes. They follow how the YouTube algorithms led him to different kinds of content down a certain rabbit hole of worldviews, and over time he transformed from a slightly lonesome gamer dude to a right-wing extremist.
This guy had strapped a GoPro on himself and angled it in a way to make his gun look like a video game.
In the most extraordinary fashion, he live streamed his attack.
And in his manifesto, essentially said that he was doing it as a big real life shit post.
And then the same YouTube algorithm led him down the extremist left-wing rabbit hole, ultimately affecting his attitudes and beliefs there as well.
The internet is doing something to us that is profoundly changing who we are.
The series gives a broad historical reading on the main strokes of what's been going on in that space over the past 10 years or so. Key players, key issues at stake, main events and upheavals. And it shows how culture wars are being waged through the various internet platforms and creating greater and greater division and polarization and, frankly, hatred among people.
We got to report on this. We got to go investigate. And I was actually I was one tiny step ahead of you because I had just talked to this guy who I thought could really help me understand what the internet is actually capable of doing to a person.
Let's do this.
And I remember you saying essentially like, I'm about to step into a rabbit hole. Do you want to come with me? Give me a little test here.
Oh, sure.
Now, for me personally, all of this has been a bit of a sideshow. I've been busy with all my work and family and so forth, and obviously know about the internet, but I don't really live there. But a lot of people do live there. They spend a lot of their time there, and they do a lot of their interactions there. So this was very, very educational for me. So that's the Russ podcast and doco recommendations for the week. Rabbit Hole, a New York Times podcast, which works very well together with The Social Dilemma. Both very well done and 100% relevant to our times, so get onto it. If you want to find links and information about that, I'll put up some posts on the Facebook page at Russ RAMJAM 3MDR. Just don't get too distracted along the way. Use social media with care and mindfulness. All right, it's coming up to 3 o'clock this afternoon here on RAMJAM, and I've got a bit of time to chuck in a couple of extra tracks before we get to up to the hour. After 3 o'clock, I am going to put on that interview for you with Tim Forsey, the energy advisor and scientist who's a consummate expert when it comes to making your home more efficient and helping to save dollars and save the planet at the same time. So looking forward to that coming up very soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to chuck on this track by Asian Dub Foundation. It is also a new track, never before played on RAMJAM, and it was only just released about a month ago. It's from their Access Denied album and quite appropriate to the topic we've just been getting into. This track is called Stealing the Future.